Greetings! Welcome to the devlog for hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades. We're going to start off as always with a quick sound check. Make sure your speakers aren't up too high. Wonderful. So what have we got for you this week? Well, starting right off, you can see I have got a fresh 1911 here. Specifically, the original one. The differences are a little subtle, I'll admit. Things like the sort of back of the grip is straight there. The hammer isn't as, the sort of back flaring isn't as pronounced. There's a chamfer around the trigger there that is not present. I believe pretty much all 1911s were upgraded to the 1911A1 in, I think it was the 20s. So this model didn't hang around for very long. If you've encountered a 1911 in a video game, it's probably the 1911A1. That's what that always refers to. But I had been wanting to get the original model in at some point and finally found a model. So here we go. Wonderful. What else have we got? Well, I've got a bunch of other turn of the century, give or take, weapons for you. All of these are, and one of the reasons that these are all going in this week is I wanted to round out the sort of end game tier equipment for Cow Wiener Calico in Take and Hold. So let's take a look at the next piece. We've got one here that in many ways looks is sort of the progenitor to the 1911. This is the Pocket Hammer 1903. And at sort of first blush, at a sort of casual glance, you're like, oh, that's really 1911-y, except you suddenly start looking at the details and you're like, wait a minute, there's no slide release or lock or safety or mag release button. It's quite a Spartan piece. As a result, this fires 38 ACP, not to be confused with 380 ACP, because cartridge designations are hilarious. Let's take some shots. Wonderful. Pop that out and you'll notice it does not lock back when it is empty. Super early automatic pistol. Wonderful. Just an absolute beaut. Moving along, I've got an even earlier piece for you, a personal favorite. That is right, we finally have the C93 Borchardt, which looks absolutely ridiculous. And yet, despite being ridiculous and actually being, by all accounts, a pretty terrible handgun, this is arguably, the most influential single automatic handgun of this era. It led to so many different things. Let's fire it first. I'm shooting high, it seems. There we go. Toggle lock. This is historically what makes this handgun so funny to me is it's an example of a really brilliant inventor refusing to listen to feedback. This was an ungainly handgun to use. It was oddly weighted. The handle was too straight. And the creator of it was given all of this advice on how to improve it, which was promptly ignored. And instead, his assistant, Luger, decided to take all of that advice and make a handgun that was not terrible with it. And that produced the P08 Luger that we are all familiar with. But this cartridge, 7.62 by 25 millimeter Borchardt, influenced not only 7.62 by 25 millimeter Mauser, but 9 millimeter Parabellum as well. There were just so many concepts that ended up making their way into other weapons, and the whole lineage of firearms, despite this being terrible. Wonderful. Such a goofy piece. Love it, though. Love it. And then last on our list of toys, we have courtesy of Stefan, who actually made this a while back. It's just taken me this long to implement it. A personal favorite, let's pronounce this correctly, Anton, the Schrogren Inertial. This is a automatic shotgun with just a absolutely unique and beautiful looking mechanism. Let's load some into the bottom there. Hit the safety off. Oh, I gotta say, firing this in real life would make me a little nervous. This is a lot of metal to be coming flying back into your face each shot. Wonderful. Wonderful. Just such a beautiful, beautiful piece. And to go with it, of course, we've got a shorty version. Because this is H3. So of course we do. You will notice that its rate of fire is a little bit slower than some of the other automatic shotguns because it takes a little more time for this bolt mass here to return forward. Wonderful. Wonderful. Oh, just gorgeous. Anywho, let's go ahead, and now that we've taken a look at the toys, and jump out of VR and talk about the other stuff that are in this, hopefully the last of the Update 85 alphas. Yo, sorry about any sniffles that have come through in the recording. I'm just now finally getting over this cold that I was stricken with last, Friday, actually. So, anywho, let's go over the other changes that are in this alpha. I rebuilt a bunch of things again about the player collision handling for Arm Swinger. It'll eventually be migrated to twin stick and single touchpad, but I would just want to double check, triple check that everything is working as intended just in Arm Swinger. There are some changes, a bunch of, obviously all the places that people were still getting caught in walls should hopefully be fixed now. I've changed some things about slope handling that are present, and I've also given you, in all contexts, just a little bit of air control. And this allows you, especially if you're doing flinging yourself up a ladder or are up against a surface that you need to jump onto, you should now be able to be right up against it, jump, and pump arm swinger wise and be able to get forward enough to be on that surface. So, as always, keep testing this, especially in the Kappa Coliseum and in Rotwieners, and let me know if you run into any strange edge cases with it. I've continued to tune and tweak the various take and hold character progressions. They're now pretty much getting where I want them to be. There is a change, though, that was related to sort of equipment pool costs and removing exploits. So now, when you purchase a piece of equipment out of a slot in the object constructor, that slot, after you make the purchase, will go up in price 1 token. It'll get reset if you use a token to, say, re-roll it. But this is basically allows me to price more things at 1 token without that immediately be something you can infinitely cycle in the recycler because you get 1 token back. And so what I've done is I've implemented that change, and then there are a bunch of pools that were 2 tokens that are now 1, which essentially turns them into a purchase you can make that you can get 100% of your resources back, encouraging you to actually do that instead of just hoard tokens until the end. So in this case, this means that for Cow Wiener Calico, you can always purchase a second single action revolver if you want to run one in that first hold. And there are a number of other pools, like for G.I. Grayson, I believe pistols now are a single token. So that should hopefully make it encourage you more to buy spare firearms to have on you early game without feeling like you're going to miss out on later game equipment because of the cost. I've also lowered some of the costs of late game equipment in general for some of these characters, in part because the fact that they only show up in hold 4 and 5 is enough of a restriction. I figured also making them cost this ridiculous number of tokens doesn't really make that much sense, because I do want to encourage people to continue to use power-ups and things like that. So yeah, so that's been tweaked. And I've still tweaked the really important difficulty change for Cow Wiener Calico. I had the wrong sort of cartridge type in the little derringers. They were able to peck you to death a little faster than I wanted them to be. So they now have a 25 ACP cartridge in them instead of a 32 ACP, which is equivalent muzzle energy wise to a 41 short, which is what would actually be in the derringer. So hopefully that should help out. I added a W330 scope mounts, the scope I added for the Model 8 and 81, to the 1873 and 1894 repeaters, so you can throw a scope onto those. And lastly, once again, to try to make Cow Wiener Calico a little more fair, feeling a little bit better, I have slightly increased the repeating speed for manually loading cartridges into a magazine. So if you're loading shotgun shells in or loading a lever action repeater, you should now, instead of it taking roughly half a second per shot, it's a little bit under a third. So you should be able to reload those faster to sort of bring them up to equivalent utility with some of the other weapons. And in terms of really important fixes, I won't enumerate them all, but the big ones are that a bunch of firearms that when you attached the sort of foregrip shroud onto their muzzle didn't actually function as a foregrip. Those all function properly as foregrips now. I fixed the broken twin stick locomotion page on the options panel, fixed some things involving laser grabbing, and the era inappropriate ammo in take and hold should now finally work correctly. So yeah. So that just about does it. I'm already out of energy here just talking this much. I hope you have fun playing around with the new toys. And as I said, just keep testing the arm swinger locomotion in the various scenes. Let me know. And assuming there are no other major problems with it that require a lot of coding time, I'm going to migrate those collision handling changes over to the touchpad and twin stick locomotion kernels, test them, and finalize them, which should hopefully allow me to push update 85 as a completed update next Friday. So cross your fingers. Anywho, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.